Hello there and welcome back to another edition of Silly Car Showdown. Today we are taking a look at the mighty Subaru Brat. Yes, the fantastic vehicle. This is a small truck produced by Subaru in the 70s and the 80s. Yes, they are back seats in the back because, well, to sell this in America without getting involved in the chickens tax, they decided to sell it as a four-door family car. It is fantastic, and essentially what this vehicle is one of Subaru's estate cars with the rear end cut off. It is fantastic. It has 69 horsepower from standard. It's probably going to end up with quite a bit more than that once we are done with it. Of course, we are going to upgrade this thing a lot and then put it around Brands Hatch and see what it can do. Now, usually in this series, of course, drivetrain swaps are not allowed, and that is the same for the Subaru Brat as it is for everything, and we have quite a lot of engines. What can we do? We can put a Honda engine in it, we can put the 2.5 litre flat 4 from an STI in it, 3 litre flat 6, and the Turbo Rally. I think we're going to go for the 3 litre flat 6 because that's an engine you don't see very often, and we haven't had a chance to play with it yet, of course, leaving drivetrain stop. And apparently we only get twin turbos on this one, so that's what we're going with. A lot of the weight is in the front, which concerns me slightly. Anyways, of course, we are going to want aero. The last pickup truck we had didn't do particularly well, so it'll be interesting to see how the Brat gets on. That's just going to take more weight off the rear end. I want as much weight over the rear as possible. I think that is going to be the best idea for this. Right, we will have race tyres. Now, thing I'm concerned about, tyre widths. Not filling me with confidence there. 225s on the front end, 225s on the rear. Oh dear. Right, let's carry on. I mean, to be fair, it's got okay PI for now. I mean, we're up into S-Class already. This is probably going to end up at about R-Class, similar to the Nissan Safari Superlight. In fact, it weighs less than the Nissan Safari Superlight currently. Which is quite an achievement. Right, we will get the brakes on this. We will want to drop it down to the ground with suspension. I love how much PI that gains putting race suspension on it. That's always a good sign that the suspension on this car from stock was completely fine. Yes, and we will have the roll cage. Ooh, that actually adds like a bull bar in the back. Nice. Didn't actually realise the Brat did that. And weight reduction. That actually does take a lot of weight, a lot of the weight, and centralises it more, so we will definitely go for that. £2,100 at the moment. Right, how much more weight can we get out of the Subaru Brat? That is the question. Not actually sure how much power this engine gets. I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of about 800 horsepower. Exhaust is going to take off a hell of a lot of weight. I would love to get this thing below £2,000, but I don't quite think we're going to do that. Hey, S800. We are much higher PI than the Ford F100 USS vehicle was, which is good. Come on. I'm assuming twin turbos probably going to add some weight, or sometimes they reduce weight. They are going to add it in this case. 817 horsepower. That horsepower figure is apparently shot through the roof. That adds weight to the front. I don't want weight in the front end. And that doesn't actually change all that much. None of these really seem worth it, to be honest with you. 800 horsepower seems crazy enough for me. So we'll leave it there. We'll leave those bits out of it. I sort of flip-flop between adding the intercooler and the oil and cooling. Sometimes it's worth doing, sometimes it just isn't. You really have to weigh up sort of the power benefit compared to the weight deficit. Anyways, 817 horsepower, 653 foot-pound torque, 2,029 pounds of weight, front weight distribution of 60%, R-Class 849, and of course it is front-engined all-wheel drive. I have no idea how this is actually going to perform, so the best thing I think we can do is load up Brands Hatch and see how well she does. Okay, the bonnet still opens. I'm assuming there's not a flat 6 under there. Alright, we are on track at Brands Hatch indeed with the mighty Subaru Brat to see how fast it will go around the track. The current leader is the Lotus Elise GT12, which set a 43.846. The Subaru Brat, unlikely to beat that. I've also loaded this one up in test drive mode because I didn't know whether the gearbox would need tuning. It doesn't. Ooh, okay. That's about as good a turning as I really expected from this vehicle. It is phenomenally fast. Jesus. This feels almost Lotus Elise GT12 fast, and the suspension is a bit wobbly. Oh dear. Oh dear indeed. It actually, it's not too bad. I like how the rev counter is actually rather... On most of these cars, when you upgrade them, the rev counters become, like, extremely quick. This apparently just isn't a particularly fast revving engine, even though all the gear ratios are a bit longer. Again, sometimes with these lower PI cars, you can never really tell what the gearbox is going to do. Ooh, we have interesting suspension. Yeah, you can never quite tell. Oh, the brakes. Oh my god, the brakes. The brakes are non-existent. Fantastic. Yeah, you can never really tell what some of these cars are going to do gear ratio-wise, so that's sort of why if I'm unsure of a car in a lower PI, I will just load it up into the test drive mode. It doesn't make any difference to the actual lap time, as far as I'm aware, between loading this up in an actual race and not. The only difference is if I load this up in an actual race, I'll get paid for it. Which is good for me. So, yeah, that is literally the only reason. Occasionally you'll see me load up a proper race, occasionally you'll see me load up the test drive mode. Yeah, this is quite a hard car to drive. I also love the speedo in this vehicle. It literally goes to 85, I'm assuming. That was some sort of speed limit, maybe? Either that or Subaru is just dead honest about their top speeds of their vehicles, maybe. Apparently this is a dirty lap, but we won't believe that because, of course, that's just where we've gone up on the previous lap. So, yeah, that won't count for anything unless we go off again, in which case that doesn't really matter because this lap wouldn't have mattered anyway. Right, yeah, the engine pretty slow revving. It is quick. It's not quite as quick as I initially thought it was. It seems the acceleration out the corners is quite quick. But other than that, there's not really a whole lot of actual speed. The suspension is horrendous. It sort of moves around a lot. Apparently stiffening this car up really has not made it any better. That was a 49.133. Jesus Christ, this car's quicker than I thought it was. 49.133, that is like seriously rather high up our leaderboard. That's quicker than quite a lot of cars I can think of. I didn't actually mention what I think this car's going to get around. Truth be told, it doesn't really matter because my estimations have gone out the window. I would have said as long as it beats the F100, I'm happy, because the F100 is the only other pickup truck we've had. But, yeah, apparently this is quicker than that F100. Ooh. It handles better than the F100, I'll give it that. It's still quite weird. All-wheel drive, or rather a lot of understeer in it. And again, the suspension lifting up doesn't help, but a 48.816. Wow. What was the benchmark with the Zenvo? A 47, I want to say? This isn't too far off the pace of the Zenvo. I mean, this is actually higher PI than the Zenvo was, but this is a Subaru Brat with 800 horsepower. So, yeah, I think all can be forgiven there. It is a rather mighty car. Actually, I will say, once I'm getting used to it, it actually isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not controllable. There is no getting around that. It's not like the Lotus Elise last time, which was just amazing to drive. Or the BMW i8 V10, which is... we've had a few all-wheel drive cars. The GTO as well. Obviously, GTO handled better than this, but it isn't the worst thing in the world. I'm going to outbrake myself on this corner. I can tell, yeah, the brakes on this thing are absolute trash. But a 48.4 is still good, and we've still got 2 more laps to go. Oh, sorry, we've got 1 more lap to go with the Brat. Or Brat, as Doug DeMiro would call it. Yeah, it's fantastic. I actually really like this vehicle, just because of how silly it is, to be honest with you. You know, the driving and all the rest of it's fine enough, but the actual overall, just the silliness of driving around in an 800 horsepower Subaru Brat is enough for me. That occasionally lifts the front wheels up, which is terrifying. Utterly terrifying. Alright, here we go. Final lap. Can we improve on that 48.4? I actually think it could. That's gonna... Is that... we are gonna get stopped for that corner. I do like this first corner because you sort of play roulette. Will you get stopped for it? And the answer isn't always yes. The answer is sort of 50-50 for most cars. Depends how much I trust the brakes. And on the Brat, I do not trust the brakes. Brakes are probably the worst thing about it, to be honest with you. I can deal with the suspension being the way it is. It's more the way the... Oh, God, we're going to understeer wide into there, and that's going to be the end of this lap. Bollocks. Yeah, I can't actually... Unfortunately, never really got a feel for this Brat, but I do think it could have actually been quicker than it was, in all honesty. Because, yeah, this feels like it could be mighty, mighty quick. I wonder if I... Right, there we go. Anyways, speaking of Mike... Oh, no. Well, one day one of these was going to end in that, but yeah, despite rolling it, that wasn't intentional. I was sort of seeing if I could get it to grip roll without going onto the gravel, and didn't realise how close the first corner was. But despite that, the Subaru Brat is rather mental, as it turns out. And it's also rather quick, as it turns out. A 48.465 will actually put it into 6th place. It is quicker than the Nissan Safari Superlight, which is interesting, actually. I believe these would have been running around the same power, but the Safari is obviously a much more substantial vehicle and a slightly more sane chassis to build with. That does make it quicker than the AMC Pacer V8 Twin Turbo, the Mazda Speed 3, the Volvo 850 NASCAR Nightmare. It's actually not that far off the Zenvo, which is really rather interesting. Yeah, solid performance from the Subaru considering what it is. Anyways, that is it for this edition of the Silly Car Showdown. Do hope you've enjoyed. As always, if there's cars you'd like to request for this series, you can do so in the comment section, and also if you go in the description, you can check my personal channel out where more silliness like this happens. Anyways, until next time, friends, farewell.